So this is one more waste of government money, that could be used for expanding Medicaid so that some of these rural hospitals weren't closing. We've got at least 10 rural hospitals that have closed. We have ambulance services that are no longer, in operational. We've got people that have to drive, over an hour to get emergency care. We've got people who are not able to get other kinds of health care, because of the lack of funding in our state. But we're going to waste money, and time, changing the name of a body of water that's not even, that has zero impact on us otherwise. It's ridiculous.
Alrighty, welcome in, kiddos. It is another fantastic week. Your favorite political podcast. It is Alabama Politics This Week with Josh Moon and
David Person.
All right, David.
I'm good. This side of Madison County is a little snowy, but the streets seem to be clear, and it's just interesting to see snow on the trees outside my office here, and on the lawns on my block.
Yeah, it is. I hate it with red hot passion. But yeah, it's all snowy and stuff, and the kids are out of school. I already taught a first grade class this morning. Went through reading and math. Got up bright and early and started at 8 a.m. with the reading and math for our e-learning day, which is you have your tablet and your kids are doing the stuff and you help them out. And so, yeah, we had a fun day. Waiting on my paycheck for that. I heard it's $75 a day for subs, so I'm going to see if we can get a little pay.
Wait, are you serious?
No, absolutely.
I was about to say, what?
Yeah. Yeah, no, you can get sub pay. I did that a few times back in right after college, and at that time it was $75 a day to sub, which in no way was it worth it. Not even a little bit. But so I'm assuming it's more now, although I should not assume since I think the minimum wage is still the same as it was back then. So no, you get zero pay. You just do the work. It's kind of like being an actual teacher in a lot of ways. So you're getting, not nearly enough pay for what the work that you're putting in. But no, it's so yeah, we've done that. Now we just all sit inside and try not to freeze to death for the next 2 days. As it's, I think the high tomorrow is somewhere around 30 degrees, which is awesome. Just so awesome.
Oh, so they're out of school for 2 days, huh?
No, I don't know. I don't think so. I hope not. I hope not. I mean, because we're just wasting days at this point. Although I think an e-learning day does not count as a missed day on the school calendar. So, I don't know how that works anymore. Also, it really, really makes me angry that they know that they're going to be out like a full 24 hours before they're out. It just it
seems strange.
Oh yeah, I mean, listen, dude, I had to get up in the morning. That morning and go in and watch the local TV news, and watch the little scroll at the bottom like I was, in the NBA draft or some shit,
right?
Waiting to see my name come across,
right.
And see, and you're just, Decatur City, say Decatur City, put Decatur City, so I put Decatur City, and inevitably about half the time Decatur City wouldn't be on there. Morgan County was always on there, but not Decatur City. And so we would end up going, like a day like today, we would definitely be in school. Somebody would have gotten out, drove the roads and said, they're fine, we're good, let's go. And they would have had our asses out there freezing to death in some classroom where the heaters barely worked. And no one ever gave us water. That's the other thing about school now, man, where I don't, my daughter carries a water bottle with her to school, and we're constantly talking about make sure you drink all your water. You need to get your hydration. And the kids, they all stop and they fill up their water bottles at school and they go and they get hot.
Really?
Man, nobody ever worried about our hydration ever. Not for a single second did they worry about this.
I definitely don't remember that. I mean, not even when we get bathroom breaks, nobody insisted that we all drink water. That just wasn't even discussed.
Hell no, it was the opposite, man. It was you would go there, they would have a line at the water fountain, and you got to the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, move. That's enough. And that was it. That's all you got. And you might get maybe if you were lucky, you got 2 of those a day. When the temperatures hit 90, in May and in August when you were there, or actually at that time we didn't go in August, we went in September. And so in September, when the temperatures are still 90, and you would go to PE and come back in all sweaty. You may get to stop at the water fountain twice on that day, but for the most part, no, nobody ever worried about our hydration. I mean,
just wasn't a thought. Not back in my day either.
No. Listen, and to prove to you what a fantastic podcast host I am, watch this transition. We need to tell you about our friends over at Wind Creek Entertainment.
What a segue.
Thank you. Listen, man, that's why they pay me the top dollar. They are the host of this, and they are the primary sponsor of this thing, the name sponsor, because it is Alabama Politics This Week, brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment. And we appreciate what they do and what they've done for the state, and we really enjoy staying at their 2 fantastic locations, and a third one in Montgomery as well. The 2 fantastic locations where their resorts are Wetumpka and Atmore, and man, very nice. Top notch.
Very.
Yes, very, very nice.
I can vouch for the one in Wetumpka. Very nice.
Yeah. See, listen, if you screwed up last week and you didn't get the Valentine's Day done right, let me tell you how to make that up. Just go online, look up Wind Creek Entertainment, call down, talk to them about some packages that you could buy. Maybe go down for a weekend, or if you're nearby, or you're taking a trip somewhere else, just get the spa package. All right, get a nice spa package. Go in.
Spa's nice.
Let your wife go to the spa, or you do a couple spa. You both go to the spa. All right, or however you want to play it, just go and then have a nice dinner. Make some reservations at Fire. Get the Cheesecake Tower. Oh, I mean, come on, man. What are you doing? All right, just do it. All right, just do it. Just pretend like this is an old Nike commercial. Be like Mike and just do it. And look, you gotta you will change your life. All right, I'm telling you. This is no joke. We appreciate what they do here, but not enough for me to lie to you about this. Okay, and I'm telling you the truth. That Fire dinner that I had, I still think about it. So it's
nice.
Y'all go have a nice time. Tell them we sent you. It's not going to do anything for you. We'll do something for us, but so you could be nice to us. In addition to that, we could possibly. I mean, we're saving your marriage, so go ahead.
Oh, that's the business we're in. Saving marriage business.
Saving marriages and relationships. That's what we're here for. We're gonna start taking calls here shortly. And so you can call in and talk it out, and we'll give you some advice. Or you can just send us an email, apwproducer@gmail.com, and we can work out your relationship advice. Any questions you have, just email it right to us. We promise we will not flush the mouse. All right. Let's move along here. It has been an eventful week, as is always the case with our current commander-in-chief and the co-commander-in-chief out there doing whatever in the hell it is that they're doing to dismantle the government. And, man, I told somebody this yesterday. Social media is a mess. I think it's probably the thing that has hurt us more than any other singular thing in the country. It has absolutely destroyed our information services and has dumbed down the population in a matter of time that I didn't think was possible. But every now and then on these platforms, you run across somebody who says something that really cuts through, I think, a lot of the noise and really digs down to the bottom of an issue and makes it, I think, very clear to people, with as few words as possible. And there was somebody, I can't remember if it was on TikTok, if it was on Facebook, or exactly where it was that I saw. And this person was talking about Elon Musk and Trump going through the just through the federal government, rooting out all these claims that they have, most of which have been determined to be absolutely false, or the fact that he simply doesn't understand how the government works. It's kind of like the claims of finding all those people who they believe are more than 112 years old. Well, there's a reason for that, because they were working off an old system when this thing was put in, and so they put a certain date as a placeholder in there because they didn't have the birth date for some of these folks on Social Security, and so they put the placeholder at like 1859 or something like that, or 1870. I can't remember what the exact date was, but anyways, it was an old date that they just put in there as the placeholder for this computer system that they were working off of at the time. And these idiots don't understand that that's just what they did. And so they think all of those people were born in that date, and we're just continuing to pay them. And it's just, it's those sorts of things when you're running through it and you give people access who don't deserve access. These are the sorts of problems that you have. But the person on social media, this is the thing that I think would cut through all this, is it's the idea that some people have that all of a sudden a handful of billionaires are working really hard for the regular people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is that what you actually believe?
Mm-hmm.
That for the first time in American history, these people, just out of the goodness of their hearts, are rolling through the federal government, doing all this stuff just to help you out?
Yeah, just out of the goodness of their hearts. It's
Yeah.
just largesse. That's what it
That's
is.
right.
Largesse.
When has that ever happened in your
Never.
life? Yeah. When has
Never.
it ever happened in this world that these people have gone in and spent this amount of time doing this amount of work for you, not for them?
And you know what really also backs that up, Josh, is I've seen a number of different pieces of reporting that indicate that the overlap between the agencies that are being targeted and those that were investigating Elon Musk's companies is significant. So, going to your point, there's an agenda here, probably multiple levels of agendas really is more accurate. And that's certainly one of them. Musk is trying to get his companies free and clear of investigation so that he can do whatever it is that he wants to do. And I'll tell you something else too that bothers me. The presumption, the presumptuousness of people to think that just because they are mega wealthy, that means they automatically know how to do anything. So we can just go in, we don't know anything about the systems, the protocols, we don't know anything about the practices, the regulations, but we can just waltz into a major government department that has, tens of thousands of employees or more, and, has, hundreds of millions of dollars or more flowing through it. And we're going to be able to figure it out and sort everything out simply because we're rich.
Yeah.
That's just astounding to me. And astoundingly stupid, too.
It is. And it's, it doesn't translate. I mean, look, is Elon Musk a smart person? Probably. I mean, probably a smart person. I don't doubt that he's smart, but there's different levels of smart, man. Or there's different kinds of smart. Look, I remember hearing a comedian one time talk about going to an auto body shop, or a car repair place. And he's like, you go in there and the guy that's talking to you, he may not have an 8th grade education, but that's the smartest man in your world at that moment right there.
That's right.
And the wealthiest guy who's put together all sorts of companies can walk into that same auto body place and he doesn't know shit.
Right.
Can't do anything. Can't help you with a single thing. And he got all the money in the world and all the stuff that he started ain't helping him at all. And that's the same thing that's kind of happening now in our government offices over there, where him and this team of 19 and 20-year-olds that he's employed, which is the other thing about this. There are people with this background and this history working in these systems and working in these departments. So probably some Republicans, conservatives out there
no doubt.
working in these departments who have this knowledge, who could do these things. So
Yeah.
why isn't he using any of it?
Right.
What makes him shy away from using those people to help him better understand these systems, and so he doesn't make these foolish, stupid mistakes, where he has to stand up in front of people and say, "Well, I'm going to make mistakes."
You know what the answer is. The answer is they don't want questions.
Yep.
They don't want questions. They don't want pushback. People who are principled, whether they're conservative or liberal, if they have experience, they're going to ask questions. They have a knowledge base already built up. These younger people, they don't have that knowledge base. And more than likely, not only are they not going to ask a lot of questions because they're probably enamored with Musk, but they also wouldn't even know what to ask, really, because they don't have any knowledge base.
No, and also they have loyalties to that company. I mean, that's the company that's paying them. That's the person who's paying them to do these things, and so they're going to be loyal to that, and not to necessarily the system or the people or the protection of the data or the protection of the sensitive information that's being collected. And where is it going? We know that he's had access to classified documents because he's posted the damn things. Which is another concern. We didn't elect Hillary Clinton because of classified information.
That's it.
I mean, she emailed not to just random people. She emailed to other State Department officials a couple of classified documents. Actually, let me be more clear about that. She emailed a couple of documents that were later determined to be classified. Okay,
more specifically,
they weren't marked as classified. They were later determined to be classified. So, that this is why we're in this mess, is because y'all couldn't vote for the woman, and and it just
it's amazing, and I think that point needs to be underscored. It's amazing. Pardon me, to me, the tolerance level, the latitude given to Trump and Musk for things that they never would have accepted from Clinton, Obama, or Biden. In fact, they would have been yelling treason. They would have been talking impeachment, and in fact did. Yeah. But now all of a sudden, the very same types of acts are considered acceptable, and there's an attempt to normalize them. And none of this mess is normal. It's all abnormal, and it's dangerous. Yeah. It's astounding.
No, it is. And, I bet, I've had a couple of Facebook posts go somewhat viral over the last few weeks. And so I've been receiving lots of messages, and they're all fantastic.
Yeah, I've been reposting some of your stuff, man. It's been good.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been good. Good stuff.
But I've gotten lots of messages, and they're all wonderful. But a lot of them, because I posted about Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris, and the unwillingness to vote for them over this stuff, and man, the one response that I have gotten repeatedly, that is the most troubling to me is these two were terrible candidates, and that's why they lost. Let me tell you something. You couldn't be a more terrible candidate than Donald Trump. All right? Nope. It's impossible. Okay? It's impossible. I don't care what Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris said or didn't say, or how they looked, or who they slept with, or what classified documents. Donald Trump, there is nothing that you can say about those two people that you can't trump with anything that Donald Trump in any way. Okay,
that's right. That's right.
Kamala Harris might have slept with the mayor of San Francisco. Oh, how about Donald Trump sleeping with a porn star and paying her off? Classified documents. Did Hillary store them in her bathroom by the box load?
And Trump also, clearly, was convicted civilly of. Inappropriate sexual behavior with a woman, a form of her, really the judge said it was tantamount to rape.
Yeah.
So I mean, what's worse? Somebody who allegedly, perhaps, maybe slept with the mayor of a city, to advance her career, which I don't even the mayor of the city denies that. She denies it. So okay, but all right, let's just assume it's true. You're telling me that that's worse than rape?
Yeah,
Are you
yeah, right.
kidding me?
I know. I know. It's they caught him on tape talking about sexual assaulting women,
Yeah,
what they
in a
let you do
very
when you're a
cavalier
star.
way.
Yeah, and listen, there's nothing, there's no
Yeah,
point in this where you can point to a flaw of either of those women,
yeah,
and you can't find a flaw 100 times worse with Donald Trump, a
yeah,
100 times worse.
yeah.
Most cases, multiple flaws that are 100 times
And let's
worse.
go back to the sleeping with the sex actress or
Yeah,
the
porn
sex
star.
worker, whatever she was. Let's go back to that Stormy Daniels. That happened, as I recall, allegedly happened with when Ivanka was pregnant, right, with the kid, right?
Melania,
Oh, I'm
Melania.
sorry, I said Ivanka, Melania. When
Hmm.
Melania was pregnant with the
No,
kid,
right
right?
after, I think it's like a few weeks after she had given birth. Yeah,
Okay, well, close
yeah,
enough. I mean,
yeah.
the principle, the basic idea is still the same. I mean, here it is, your wife has just born your child, the first child that you guys have together, and you're sleeping with, a porn star. I mean, you're telling me that that's not more egregious than what anything Kamala Harris allegedly did? Give
Hmm.
me a break.
Yeah, man. But this is how they roll. And if I'm not mistaken, don't Trump and Musk together have something like 12 or 13 kids with 6 different women?
Something like that. And
Yeah.
that also, I mean, I remember the days when conservatives would rail against these NBA players having all
Nah.
these children with different women, and these NFL players having all these children with different women. And
Uh-huh.
now you got Trump, you got Musk, and Musk, I think even probably is more applicable even than Trump, because I don't
Yeah.
think Musk was married to any of those women. And nobody cares. Nobody's saying
Yeah.
a word. So my thing is, personally,
Oh,
I
I'm
don't
sorry.
think it's
Musk alone
anybody's.
has 13 kids. I'm sorry.
Musk has 13.
Yes.
Wow. So that's more than Sean Kemp has, I believe. And people used to always talk about Sean Kemp, the
What,
NBA
Tyreek
star.
Hill? What
You know,
doing Tyreek Hill? People are giving Tyreek Hill hell right now for having
right?
what, 8 or 9?
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
so
we're
those
in Nick
guys.
Cannon territory, my
So
man.
yeah,
I mean,
exactly. So those
yeah,
guys are also horrible and terrible role models. What about Elon Musk?
yeah.
What bothers me really is personally, it's none of our business who's sleeping with whom and how many babies they're having, really, right? No
No.
matter who it is. But if you're going to be in the business of judging people based on those things, what the hypocrisy is astounding, especially coming from so called evangelical Christians. It is absolutely astounding, shamelessly astounding hypocrisy.
Oh, it is. But listen, come on, man. I mean, the hypocrisy at this point is so off the charts and so over the top that I mean, I mean, it stretches. It just stretches beyond all rational. I mean, they're not even trying anymore. I mean, honestly, and they don't have to. I mean, we've landed in this. I wrote about this week. We've landed in this media sort of landscape now, where social media dominates stuff, and it's really just a matter of getting attention. That's all anybody cares about anymore. I mean, because the number of stupid pieces of legislation that we have to deal with, that we now talk about all the time. It's just there's a bill, I swear to God, to rename Greenland Red, White, and Blue Land. All right,
Yeah, I
it's
saw
a
that.
real it's a
That's,
real bill in Congress. It's a real
that's
bill in Congress. I swear to God, there's a
red, white, and
bill.
blue, and I saw that. That's
There's a
crazy.
bill to make Donald Trump's birthday a federal holiday. All right.
Now that I'm going to tell you, when I saw that, and I saw those two things in your column, your most recent column. When I saw that one, it really sent chills up my spine, because, again, it just shows that we've got a certain segment of political leaders and I'm assuming the American populace, based on how you hear some people talk, who really are deifying Trump. They're basically deifying him. I mean, I know, I understand, and I know that it's a fairly that we have other people for whom we have named holidays. President's Day and MLK, but that's something that's generally reserved for people, first of all, who are dead, who've died. Secondly, people who have made an indelible mark on the nation. Donald Trump may have made an indelible mark on the nation, but it's the kind of mark that I would say is sort of like a smear of feces on the wall of the Capitol, that kind of mark. And on top of that, he's still living, and it's just I mean, we're now moving into the kind of territory where this is almost for the people who spent who's for whom most of their lives undoubtedly they spent ripping apart communism and dictatorships and authoritarian governments. We are now moving into a culture. They're creating a culture which is exactly like that. Who would give, next thing you know, there'll be big, huge posters of Trump all over the place, like Saddam Hussein in
I think
Iraq,
there already is.
or
They're already
Fidel
they're already putting his face on flags and flying them everywhere.
Well, I mean government, not just people, but government. Like they did in Iraq with Hussein, with him, or Saddam Hussein, or in Cuba with Castro, or some other place. I mean, that's the territory we're moving in, and it's astounding to me that these people don't see that.
Yeah, especially when he's signing executive orders saying only the president can interpret the laws or speak of the laws, and I mean, it's just
It's like we don't have three branches of government anymore.
Right, and and the other problem is I think one of the biggest, the stupidest things that I've seen, and speaks to what you're talking about, is this Gulf of America nonsense. I mean, he said this on a whim one time, and somebody laughed, and that's been it. And so now, like I wrote in a column, I said now we've got to run around and pretend as though the emperor, does have clothes on, and they're just awesome clothes. And instead of saying, what are you talking about? This is not how this works. You don't just get to rename it, whatever the hell you want to rename it. There's a process for what the name. It's been that way since 1550. I mean, what are you doing? And I mean, I know it's cute and funny and all, but now we got people passing bills in Alabama to call it the Gulf of America, and make sure that all of our signage says Gulf of America, and make sure all of our maps that we produce later says Gulf of America. And changing those signs and all this stuff, I mean, it's just going to cost us money. It's all it's going to do. And for what? Nobody else is going to refer to it as the Gulf of America. All right, they're just not. And because there's a process that goes through NATO and through other international bodies that, in terms of naming bodies of water that are that large, and this is what it has been, and they're not going to change it. And it's stupid to even have this conversation.
We derive zero benefit from any name at all. We don't benefit from it being called the Gulf of Mexico, which is what it's been for, as you've pointed out, for several centuries. We also don't get derive any benefit from the name being changed. So as you said, all we're going to be doing is creating more chaos and spending more money that we don't have at a time when we say we're trying to cut spending. So this is one more waste of government money, that could be used for expanding Medicaid so that some of these rural hospitals weren't closing, as you pointed out in the story that you did on the APR website this past week. We've got at least 10 rural hospitals that have closed. We have ambulance services that are no longer in operational. We've got people that have to drive over an hour to get emergency care. We've got people who are not able to get other kinds of health care, because of the lack of funding in our state. But we're going to waste money. We're going to waste money and time, changing the name of a body of water that's not even that has zero impact on us otherwise. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, to me, it's just another example of, this a cultish like behavior of these folks, and it's really embarrassing. It really is embarrassing to watch people, especially the same people that run around using terms like beta and to describe the lack of masculinity from which they expect for other people to act or whatever they define as masculine or macho or whatever. It's just it's honestly, there could be no better definition of cowardice than the way that they have behaved. The refusal to step up and stop some of the stuff that has gone on, the refusal to take a stand for the country, the refusal to take a stand for basic laws and rights and stuff, and it just all of it together is kind of sickening. It really is, and all right, let's slide out. We're gonna come back. We're gonna get Susan McKenney in here. She is the chair of a new group of Alabama Democratic county chairs. The new association has been put together to kind of uh, hopefully help jumpstart the Alabama Democratic Party and do some stuff from the ground up, working on fundraising, candidate training, and recruitment, and all sorts of different things. And these are the folks who get it done anyway, so might as well put them all into one big group and see what they can come up with.
Yeah.
But let's talk to her, see what sort of hell we can raise with her in just a few minutes, and we'll be right back. It's Alabama Politics This Week, brought to you by Wing Creek Entertainment.
Absolutely.
Alrighty, welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week. Josh Boone, David Person, and we are happy now to have Susan McKenney in here. We're going to grill her. We've got a lot of tough questions, and she better have some really good answers because we are not happy. No, we're just kidding. We're very happy to have her on.
Yes.
Susan is the new chair of a new organization. It's the Alabama Democratic County Chairs Association.
That's correct.
That's
Cheers,
right.
possessive.
Chair's possessive. Okay. So I'm assuming that that what we have here in forming this was because I've talked to a lot of chairs, and I'm not going to put words in your mouth because I've not talked to you about this, but in talking to some of the others around, they have been somewhat, I would say, frustrated would be an appropriate word, over maybe the lack of candidate development, the lack of concern sometimes over where the counties, the problems in the individual counties and what they're facing, maybe weren't getting enough attention at the higher levels of the Alabama Democratic Party. And so I'm assuming that the formation of this is a means to say, hey, look, let's all get together. Let's address this. Let's let our voices be heard. Let's do some stuff to address our problems. Am I wrong about that? Or is
No,
that
you're
basically
absolutely right. For the past 2 years, we have done a lot of training and interaction with the counties. This has been the bright spot, I think, amongst the party. We've worked well with our vice chair of county affairs. We developed a new training manual. We've been out there trying to make sure that every county chair was engaged in what they're supposed to be doing, provide them some resources. The one thing, though, that was lacking was that there was no collaboration. We'd see each other maybe at an SDEC meeting or maybe a rally or a training event, but we really felt that we needed to get together as a group and sort of form a coalition and start paying attention to what we really needed to have happen here. And we firmly believe as county chairs that we're where the rubber meets the road. As I said to you earlier, that there's not just one election that gets held in Alabama, it's 67. Every county chair has a county committee that is canvassing, recruiting candidates, training volunteers, protecting elections. It all happens at the county level. And so we wanted to give county chairs more. And we feel that by forming an association, we could focus on these issues rather than this being a side issue with the state party. So we'll collaborate with them. We're all chartered under the state party, but we wanted to do more than what we had been doing. And this is very common in other states. I'm from Illinois, and Illinois has had a county chair association for 50 years. Tennessee has had one for 30 or 40. Georgia's had one for about the same amount of time. So this is nothing new. It's just something that Alabama had not identified as something that was important to do.
Right. Now, has this been received well from the hierarchy of the party itself?
From what I have heard, now the Vice Chair of County Affairs did attend the meeting on Saturday where we voted to form this organization. He is a county chair, so he was at the meeting, and he did take it back to the powers. And in fact, we got up the vote.
Was he shot on the spot, or
no,
was it,
no,
okay.
No. In fact, from my understanding, is that they support what we're doing.
Okay.
Okay, maybe it's a relief to them that somebody else is going to take this on and build this up. But from what I gather, they support what we're doing, which was a good thing. I really am dedicated to not making our group. I'm an SDEC member, so I know what it's like to go to an SDEC member, and we wanted this to be totally different, a great departure. And the county chairs really are different. They're passionate. These are the people that are out there doing the work, and they know it's a lot different than being an SDEC member where you go to a meeting and then go back to your county and never, really interact with your county at all. In some cases, that's true. Congressional District 4, you were talking about earlier in one of your podcasts, and I would love to have that discussion with you, but we organized also on Saturday by U.S. congressional districts because we really need to make sure that these county chairs are working to defeat people like Robert Adderholt. And our U.S. congressional district 4 that I'm in is Robert Adderholt. And he has been a target, and we have been working on this for a long time. He actually does have a summer house. They call it Shirley's Dacha in Guntersville. Shirley's Dacha. Dacha means summer house in Russian. Now, most people name their beach house or lake house like, I don't know, come overboard, or I don't know what they call them.
Right.
But I thought that was really peculiar that they named it Shirley's Dacha. Shirley, of course, is his mother-in-law. But Dacha is unusual around here.
Yeah, not a lot of Russian being spoken in this state of Alabama. Very little English properly, but it's no. I think you're right about a lot of this stuff. But I wanted to follow up one thing before I let David take the floor here. It sounded as though you have not y'all didn't speak to the leadership of the Alabama Democratic Party before.
When you're talking about leadership, you're talking about Randy Kelly, who's our chairman. And of course,
co-chairman Joe Reed.
Yeah. Okay. I wasn't going to say that. But that's not unusual.
Okay.
I mean, they have their mind on other things than the counties, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
So in my 28 years, I've never received a phone call from Joe Reed or Randy Kelly.
Wow.
Now, David,
your turn.
Nancy Worley used to call me, and she was very active.
Susan, I'll I'll take it from here. My questions won't be as inflammatory as Josh's. Uh, so first of all, let me take a point of personal privilege here. You're from the state of Illinois. I grew up in Illinois. I grew up in Chicago, south side of Chicago. Are you from Chicago?
I was born at Great Lakes Naval Hospital in Waukegan. We were living in
Okay.
Chicago, and then we migrated out, and I was actually schooled and raised in Crystal Lake, Illinois.
Okay. Okay.
But
All
very
right.
much involved in politics my entire life. My father was a county chair. I knew Richard J. Daley, of course, and I admired their organization and how they did the machine and organizing down to the block. And that is a dream of mine. I understand that we're in a total different area but I'm trying to apply that knowledge of organization to a rural environment.
All right. Well, I'll say machine politics has its positive points, and it also had some negative points, especially for those of us who were black and on the south side of Chicago, on the other side of the Dan Ryan. But I get your point. I
Well, Harold
understand you.
Washington had a machine too, though.
Oh, no doubt. That's
Yeah.
why I say I'm talking about under Daley. I'm talking about under Daley.
Yeah.
But you're right. But Washington's machine was different from Daley's machine.
Well, Harold Washington, I would say, was probably one of the best mayors Chicago ever had.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I think I'd have to second that based on, even though I was down here, based on what I've heard, he was. Let's get back to Alabama politics.
Sure.
So, I'm curious to know, and this is perhaps a follow up to one of Josh's questions, from a functional standpoint. What do you expect your county chairs group to do that the Alabama Democratic Party either isn't doing or isn't doing much of that will enable both entities to function together in a productive way for Democrats here?
Well, I've had a really good working relationship with the Vice Chair of County Affairs. For the past 2 years, I have worked very closely with him on these trainings. Most of the trainings were trainings that I created and was able to deliver to the state. And the things where I just don't think the ADP was set up to go much further than where we've gone. What we've already started, we hit the ground running after this weekend. We've already developed a shared Google Doc site where they have access to all the trainings that we've done, access to all the forms that they might need, a form to appoint a poll watcher, certifying elections, qualifying candidates. We're trying to make sure that they have all the resources they need in one convenient location that they can have access to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We continue to do trainings. We've already got more trainings set up where we're cooperating with the state party. Our next one is coming up in March. And there's certain things that are, we're trying to help them how to recruit candidates, how to reorganize your county committee, make sure that it's functioning properly, making sure that you are filing your FCPA reports, good practices, things like that. So we'll continue to work with the state party on that. After all, we're all chartered under them, and we need to do certain things together. But there will be things that we can do to help our neighboring parties out. We've got some counties that, like I said, need reorganization. Maybe we can help them financially get going. And that's something that the state party's not able to do. So there's certain things that we've got in mind.
Okay.
And communications. I want to mention one more thing, David.
Yeah.
Communications is really important. We established a communications and county engagement committee that will be able to respond and react immediately to issues and making sure that there's a continuity of message among our county chairs rather than, Winston County doing one thing, Jefferson County doing another thing, that we'll be all on the same page in our messaging, which I think will be more powerful.
Okay, so I'm hearing you say basically that it sounds like you're creating an infrastructure or adding to the infrastructure of the party, improving it, extending it, making it more functional. So that all sounds good, and it sounds like you're going to be bringing some things operationally closer to the grassroots to help develop and galvanize the voting base, which I like hearing that as well. But you did say something that caught my ear. You said you might even be able to help some of the struggling uh, county party operations financially, and you said the state can't do that. Now, I need you to clarify that, because we've always been told. In fact, the last time we had Chairman Kelly on, he told us that the state party was doing fine financially. So what
Okay.
do you say?
Well, it's not that it's a financial issue, it's a legal issue.
Okay.
The state party is a PAC,
Okay.
Political Action Committee, and most of our county committees are PACs as well.
Okay. So no
If you're
PAC to PAC
participating in an
transfers.
election and you
Okay.
reach a certain status financially, you're a PAC and you need to
Okay.
report. So a new committee wouldn't have established as a PAC yet.
Okay.
So we could give to them, a certain amount of money that they
Gotcha.
might apply for, and we could help them establish, and then they become the PAC after they're, and I've talked to other states that have this association, and you do have to be, of course, very careful about that. So we want to make
Gotcha.
sure that we're following the law.
Got you. I understand now. Let me ask you one other question. From where you sit in Marshall County, how would you assess the overall health of the Democratic Party? Do you think, in other words, to be more specific, do you think that in this upcoming statewide election, we're going to have a full slate of candidates? And do you think some have the potential to even be competitive?
Absolutely. I'm hearing nothing but good things. What happened with this last presidential election was it brought folks, and I'll use the term that ordinarily hear in this case, but they came out of the closet. It was outstanding. Most of our county meetings are overrun now with new folks coming in, wanting to join, wanting to do some work. Sorry they weren't here before. Now, there's still a lot of work to be done. But it's definitely an energized party from the grassroots level. I know that we're all working with our state party. I mean, every one of us is a candidate recruiter in my book. And so we are all we're participating, believe it or not, in the municipals. We've decided that we're not sitting this stuff out. For the past 2 months, most of the county chairs have been doing programs on municipal elections and encouraging people to run for office. I had former Mayor Bob Hembry from Gunnersville speak at our meeting this month and talk and try to encourage people to run for office and how satisfying it can be, and that it is possible. You don't have to be a rich car dealer to be the mayor or be your council member. So we're trying to encourage people to run for office and get involved. And this is going to affect our library boards, our school boards, and all the rest of it. So municipals is on our radar right now, and which will segue, of course, into the midterms. And as far as the midterms go, we're recruiting right now. I know that Tabitha Eisner, our vice chair, has been out recruiting. We've got some new organizations. There's Blueprint Alabama that's out there that Josh Coleman and Carolyn Self has developed, and they're recruiting and have money available to help these candidates. So it's a real concentrated effort. There are a lot of different arms and legs to the party right now.
Great.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's encouraging to hear. It is. I mean, I think a lot of people automatically assume that things are dead as always, and that there's the they see the things that are happening with the folks at the top of the party, and the bickering and the fighting and stuff that it's going on, and they don't necessarily believe that anybody's out there doing some of the things that you're talking about doing. And so, in that regard, I know y'all have just started, but I know you've also been talking about it for a while. I know y'all have been putting in work. Have you found people who are excited, or are folks excited about what you're doing?
It was incredible. When everybody left on Saturday, there was just so much excitement. These people that were ready to give up are now energized, that there is hope. And it's a lot of excitement right now. They all have things to do on Saturday. The committees are meeting within 30 days. The executive board will meet within 60 days. We'll have another general membership in 90 days. And we just keep going. Every day it's something that we're doing out there, developing these programs so that we can get going.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about running for chairman of the party?
I have been a behind the scenes person my entire life.
Yeah.
Like I said, my father was a county chair. I started out real early in life as a precinct organizer. And when I came to Alabama and got involved in politics, I thought, I can do this different. I can do this better. But I'm not ready to move to Montgomery, to tell you the truth. I love living in Gunnersville. It's a beautiful place to live. And I can be very effective doing what I'm doing right here.
Well, now
Yeah,
you don't
well,
have to. You don't have to live in Montgomery to be chair of the
That's
party.
true. That's true. Dr. Kelly lives in Huntsville.
Yeah. Yeah.
So no, no, it's
I'm not trying to
something.
recruit you
I
to that
really like
position
to
like
I'm trying
Josh.
to
but,
tell you the truth, you guys.
I'm
I'm not
I
trying
am
to
actively
recruit
trying
you,
to
but
recruit you. So
that was just a point of information for me. I'm not trying to
Yeah.
recruit you.
No,
Oh.
I really enjoy doing what I'm doing, but I am retired. I used to own a radio station here in Alabama.
Oh,
And
okay.
now that I'm retired, I do this full time. And it was not my intention. My intention was to be a world traveler. And I feel so compelled to stay here. I feel it's very important. I mentioned to Josh previously that even though I am from Chicago and I am bringing what I call Chicago style politics to the South, I do have an Alabama connection that I like to mention, that my great uncle was Bear Bryant's coach at Alabama. His name was Frank Thomas. He was from Notre Dame. He was under Newt Rockne. And I always say that my uncle brought Notre Dame style football to the South, and I'd like to bring Chicago style politics here to the party and see if we can
Right
get
on.
us organized. So
Beautiful.
I'm dedicated. I think that I would like to see I'm trying to encourage young people, of course, to take roles of leadership in this party. And all the debate about caucuses. Caucuses are important. They are so important to our party that we need the disability caucus. We need a stronger youth caucus. They need to be to feel like they're welcome to our party. We need a veterans caucus, a labor caucus. There's so many things that we need. Labor is big in our county chair association. We have several county chairs who are labor union leaders. So we think we're going to have a nice association with labor as well.
I hope so. We're we're both big pro labor unions
Yep.
here on the
Yep.
podcast and in real life as well.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got a lot of family who live in the Shoals area who probably wouldn't be alive today if not for the unions
And I
for
come from a long line of iron workers
yeah.
out of the the valleys in Abbeville, Wales, and I know of this kind of suffering they went through.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's very important. Yes, it's all very important, and we look. Thank you for coming on
Yes.
and spending some time. First of all, but mostly, thank you for, I think, restoring some hope and some faith and some excitement and enthusiasm to the party itself Keep up the work that you're doing, please. If somebody starts to discourage you, let us know. I normally send David to attack people like that. And because listen, he seems nice, but he's very scary if you get him.
I
Um,
have
uh,
some very scary friends, so don't
yeah.
worry.
I understand. Now,
Yeah.
listen, that daily machine, that'll scare the hell out of some people.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Susan, really, thank you so much for what you do and for coming on and spending some time.
Thank you for helping us get the word out that the party is alive and well.
All right. All
Right.
right. That is Susan McKenney. Listen, if she calls, answer the call.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Because
Appreciate
she's
you
got some
guys.
stuff.
Take care,
Thank you,
Susan.
Susan.
Thank you.
All right. All right. We're going to slide out. We'll come back in just a minute and wrap this thing up. It's Alabama Politics This Week. We're back in a minute. All righty, welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week. Josh Moon, David Person. Appreciate Susan McKenney for her time and the efforts there. Appreciate the folks at Wind Creek Entertainment for sponsoring this bad boy, as always. And the folks over at SPLC. We got some good stuff coming up with them here in the next couple weeks with the wreath laying ceremony and the things that go into the bridge crossing over in Selma. They always do a great job of promoting that and the importance of that event. And so we're happy to be a part of that as well. It's a very important thing. We're going to have to do a little more bridge walking or bridge crossing, I guess, here in the coming years, it seems, as we have rolled back much of what those folks had accomplished.
Yeah.
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 All right. Before we get into right wing nut and bad stuff, let's cover at least one positive, good story. And that is there's a bill by, and you're not going to believe this, Arthur Orr, that is a good bill. It's a bill about requiring adult-sized changing tables in public facilities. And I think it's, I listened to the debate on this in the committee, and I found it to be a reassuring debate to a certain degree. It was a good discussion. People were rational. People were concerned. People were compassionate. People were interested and asked good questions and were also, appropriately skeptical of things. And I'll be honest, I am somewhat skeptical a bit myself on this, just simply because I understand the requirements of it. I would like to see what they're going to do with funding, because while I agree with the need and necessity for this, if we're talking about an establishment that is being built, and you're going to require this of them, this is not simply, and listen, what an adult-sized changing table is for special needs adults. Because those kids that you see that who are special needs, they grow up to be adults, and so they're large. They cannot change themselves. They have to go to the bathroom like all the rest of us, and so you end up with caregivers and parents who are struggling with them when they're out in public on a nasty bathroom floor or something somewhere. And so this is to kind of rectify that and to help those folks out. And I am all for that. However, just reading through the bill and stuff, there's some requirements that they be motorized for the lifting apparatus on it. And so when you get into that sort of expense, there needs to be something in there that helps. If you're going to require it, then you got to be able to help them in some ways, whether that be offset their business taxes, whatever. I think that if they're going to install these things and be required to do that, then you need to help them in other ways to kind of offset at least some of that expense in doing so. But otherwise, I found the whole thing to be rather reassuring that at least some folks in our state legislature are have some compassion and want to do the right things.
Yeah, and I think in addition to helping people that have adult children with severe disabilities who require that kind of assistance, as we continue to see our aging population live longer, Josh, I think it could be that it's also going to be helpful for some people who have to care for elders who are not able to take care of themselves when it comes to their bathroom needs, and also even people who have been injured in some way and have a severe long-term disability. So I think there are lots of categories. Well, I won't say lots, but there's several different categories of people who will probably benefit from this. I think you're right when you say that it would be good if some kind of accommodation can be made for the business, because it is going to be a significant expense, some kind of tax incentive or something perhaps to help them. But I see it as no different. I see this as in the same spirit of the Americans with Disabilities Act. There's certain things that businesses had to do in order to comply with that act so that they could truly live up to the idea of their public public accommodations. And ultimately, I would argue, even if perchance for some reason there was no tax incentive extended to a business, having these kinds of facilities ultimately will make businesses more desirable for a wide range of people, because they'll know, hey, I can go to that. I can take my family to this restaurant because they have a way to accommodate our entire family, as opposed to having to suffer through an experience without it, and perhaps deciding not to go to a business because they don't have it. So I think there's a way to even look at it on the plus side, even if there are no government incentives provided. But I would agree with you, if it can be done, it would certainly be, I'm sure, helpful to many businesses, especially smaller businesses.
Yeah, I do. It's just, they front load a lot of taxes and a lot of fees and things on anybody that's trying to start up a business.
Mhm.
You hear that complaint a lot, and it's a valid complaint. It really is a valid complaint. I know that, that this is a lot of times our more liberal friends, that they don't necessarily fall down on the side of businesses and stuff, and it's more of a Republican or conservative type talking point on these sorts of things. But if you've ever tried to start one, I mean, listen, there are good liberals that own a lot of businesses too out there, and they'll tell you the same thing. And I think so. I think that there are a lot of fees and some things that could be offset, that go to the government currently, on that front side of this thing. To add an extra expense like this, if you're building a building, now, it's not going to be required if you're not building a building or significantly renovating one. And it was some talk about what constitutes significantly renting or renovating, and it would have to be pretty thorough, gutting of a facility. And so so this is not going to apply otherwise. But still, if you're building a building, and putting in that expense, and now you're going to have this added to on top of some of the other things that you're already going to have to pay, it can be cost prohibitive, I would say, on a lot of stuff, and might deter some folks from opening a business. And you don't want that. You don't want that to happen, because I mean, that's honestly, it's kind of, look, we talk about this all we want to, but that's kind of the lifeblood of a community, is your businesses, small businesses especially. And so what we can do reasonably to help folks out, I've always thought that one thing we ought to do is offset most of these taxes and these fees and stuff until the business actually starts making money. All right. And if it doesn't, listen, there should be some cost for a business license and some other stuff on the front end of this thing. But if the business isn't making any money, then I don't think that some of these things that they should have to pay for until they do start making some. And
Well,
so
I would agree. I think that's reasonable. I think
Yeah.
that's reasonable also. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but listen, that's just me. That's the Republican portion of our show, and so the pro-business Republican portion. All right. Now let's go to the bad stuff.
right.
Well, actually, you know what? Another good story. Wes Allen's going to run for lieutenant governor. And I know what you're thinking. How could that be good? Well, because that removes Wes Allen from a spot where he can do maximum harm into a spot where he can do very little.
Yeah.
Lieutenant governor doesn't do a whole lot. All right. There's just not much to being a lieutenant governor. It's kind of like being vice president of the United States. The only thing you can really do is go over to Europe, piss off everybody, and so otherwise you're just kind of there. You run the Senate, and every now and then you can create controversy when you don't do the votes right or something. But otherwise, there's just not much that you're doing as lieutenant governor, and
Right.
so
Except for one thing. Now,
Yeah.
I agree with you. It's a pretty benign position, except for one thing. It does put the person one step closer to being the governor.
Well,
So
that's true.
that
It
to me is a
true.
real downside.
Yeah, I mean, it is a downside there, but
Yeah.
I mean, maybe we can make sure that Will Ainsworth runs laps or something every now and then, and keeps himself in shape. But or I don't know, maybe Will and Wes Allen are interchangeable. Although, as you know, I do love Will Ainsworth. He and our
Yeah, that's your
close
boy. I
friends.
know. That's your boy.
Yeah, that's right, it's my boy. But no, I do like Will. I do like him. Despite his many flaws, and I'm sure he would say, despite my many flaws, we get along fine.
Yeah, I met him once. He was a nice enough guy. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
he's
No,
all right.
it's
He's all
that's
right.
I talk to him occasionally and stuff. We have laughs. So we don't talk about a lot of politics. Or if we do, it's usually to make fun of certain people in politics, and I always enjoy that. Anybody that I can get on the phone and poke fun at other folks with, I enjoy those conversations a lot, and because there are always some really fun things. It's like my buddy Kelvin Datcher, who's new rep down in Montgomery, who by the way didn't. I know he listens to this podcast on his trips back and forth from Birmingham to Montgomery, and I really appreciate that last return of the text message that I sent you. So I see where we stand. Thanks a lot. But there are
Sounds spicy.
things. Yeah, well, that's not spicy at all. It was just I asked a question, a pretty simple question. He didn't bother to respond. So
okay.
yeah. So dead to me. But we've had conversations, and over the years in which if anyone had recorded them, neither one of us would be employable anywhere ever for the rest of our lives. So it's just because we're making fun of people, and
Right.
it just and it's not mean spirited. It's just kind of a commentary on the realities of the world.
Sure.
It just that's
Human
how we
nature kind
do.
of stuff, huh?
Yeah. So, but Wes Allen is going to run for lieutenant governor, which moves him out of being able to screw around with people's voting, which is helpful. Of course, this being a good thing also assumes, in addition to the governor not dying, that we're not going to get somebody worse in as Secretary of State. Maybe we can just go back to John Merrill. I mean, I would be okay with that. I would be okay with John Merrill just being permanent Secretary of State, honestly. He's got his flaw. We all know what that flaw is, okay? But John Merrill took the job seriously. John Merrill resisted a lot of the really stupid, hurtful, harmful things. A lot of the stuff Wes Allen has done, John Merrill would have not done. Matter of fact, John Merrill and Wes Allen got into a very public fight not long after Wes Allen took office, when he removed Alabama from the voting coalition among the states that was sharing information. And John Merrill said this is a stupid move that is doing nothing but hurting Alabama to draw publicity over this. And he was right. He was absolutely right. About that. We could share information to cut down on fraud through this coalition of states, and we removed ourselves from it because of stupid Republican talking points. And so there were a lot of things that went on during John Merrill's tenure that were like that. There were a lot of things that went on during John Merrill's tenure that were very icky to talk about. So I understand that as well. And I understand that he is a Republican and he has Republican tendencies to do other things that are not so great. But overall, I think he's about the best we could have hoped for.
Well, I'll never say that I would rather have a John Merrill in permanently as Secretary of State, because I'd much rather see uh, a competent Democrat with integrity based on the current
Yep.
ideological disposition of Democrats. And I stress that because we know Democrats used to be something else in the Jim Crow era. But the modern Democrat with current ideological dispositions and philosophical positions, who's competent with integrity, I'd rather see governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state on down to be somebody of that ilk. Now, barring that, I'll take a Republican over, with integrity. Barring that, with
Yeah.
integrity and competency, I'll take that. But
Well,
you
I
know,
mean, I just look at it from a realistic perspective, and I appreciate the Susan McKenneys and the things that they're doing out there, but we're nowhere close to that. You know what I mean? We're a generation away from Democrats in this state being organized enough to get somebody into a statewide office on a consistent basis like that. We just are. I mean,
well,
we don't have the candidates, we don't have the recruitment, we don't have the money, we don't have the organization, we don't have the people at the top that are moving us in that direction. We just
yeah.
don't.
Well, I think you're right when you say that we don't have that now. Now, I will also say that I think, when Barack Obama was running for president, many of us did not see how in the world that was going to be possible, and yet it happened. So my thinking is that sometimes in politics things change. Sometimes based on the candidate, sometimes based on a paradigm shift with organizations, and sometimes maybe a candidate can help to instigate that. But I'm going to continue to hope, even though I lean toward what you're saying. I'm going to continue to hope that it's not going to take a generation for the Alabama Democratic Party. I mean, all things being equal, for the Alabama Democratic Party to begin to see the kind of change and development that would see Democrats of the kind of Democrats that I'm describing elected. And I would argue, my final statement on this, Josh, I would argue that what Susan McKenney and the other Democratic chairs are doing is a step in that direction.
Oh,
A
I
significant
don't
step in that
disagree.
direction.
I don't disagree. The problem is that we all know what's in front of them, which is a fight with who? It ain't Republicans. It's other
No, you're right.
Democrats.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're
And
right.
so
You're
and
right.
so we
It's a fight. It's going to be a fight.
here's the
Yeah.
problem that I have. The problem that
Yeah.
I have in seeing it optimistically is
Okay.
that we're 20 years into this at this point right now.
Mhm.
We're 20 years into this decline where Republicans, come in, took over, started slowly taking over, then took over in a big swoosh in 2010. Run everybody out, and then grabbed a supermajority a couple of years later, and there's been, in that amount of time, there has been zero progress, zero. I mean, matter of fact, you could argue that in some areas we're worse than we were at that time. And so, you know, and just what we have. Look, we've had Randy Kelly on, we've had Joe Reed on. I like Joe Reed a lot. I don't know Randy Kelly well enough to say that I like him a lot. He's fine human being. I'm sure we agree on 99% of politics, but they're not helping. They're not. They're matter of fact, they're a hindrance in most cases to things. All right. I mean, they just are. They're just a hindrance to most things in the party, and it's not going to grow. They want to fight all the time about everything and turn everything into a race war among people in which race is the least thing to worry about. I mean, when you were talking about Democrats in the state, I understand where Black people in this state have been. I get it. I do. But when we're talking about Democrats in this state, this is not the group that you're arguing about. race with, you know? This is a group that's trying to help and trying to do things to move the stuff forward, and it's still that fight, and they still fall back on that when fighting these other folks, and it serves to limit the party and to tarnish those other people, a lot of 'em who are good
Well,
people who I think would have a future.
I'm gonna push back a little bit. First, I'm
Okay.
gonna say I think I like Randy Kelly. I
Okay.
like him as a person, and I think that in terms of his intentions as a leader, I think are have integrity, and I think he wants ultimately what's best for the Democratic Party. Now, having said that, I don't agree with Randy Kelly on everything. And I don't agree with Joe Reed on everything. I like Joe Reed too, even though I haven't had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Reed personally. I like him as well. But I don't agree with either one of them on anything, and on everything, I should say. And I don't believe that um, that the way they view, uh, I'll say, white Democrats as in general, because they've also, they've also talked about their belief that there are what we have commonly called in civil rights nomenclature whites of goodwill. Um, they do believe, though I think that there is a significant portion of white Democrats who uh, are resistant to black leadership, and I don't know that they're wrong about that. I don't know that they're wrong about that. I certainly, though, I will say I think in my mind, what I'm more certain about is this. I think there are the vast majority of not just white Democrats, but probably of all Democrats. But certainly the vast majority of white Democrats, I believe, are of the mindset that it is impossible for anybody other than a white male Democrat to win the top 2 or 3 positions in the state. And I think as long as we subscribe to that point of view based solely on that rationale, that it takes that skin color and gender are factors that we just have to acquiesce to, I think that's problematic. And right now, we can argue, well, the data shows, okay, the data shows something, the polls show something, but I would also argue that we have not been effective enough in developing our infrastructure or in our messaging, especially as it relates to reaching and pulling in all of the eligible voters possible for us to truly say in the final analysis that it's impossible, for somebody who's not a white male to win one of those top 3 offices. So I don't like the idea that we're just sort of acquiescing to that idea. That bothers me a lot.
Yeah, I'll say, my problem with Randy Kelly and with Joe Reed too, is that I understand what you say about them saying, there are good whites, good, well-intentioned white people out there. The problem is that so often the way they determine whether or not you're well-intentioned is whether or not you agree with them. And anybody who doesn't is somehow or another a racist, or does not want there to be black leadership within the party. Even though there were a whole lot of the white people were the ones that elected the party's first black chairman, and would gladly do so again with a number of different folks there. And so I think a lot of the times they fall back on that because they're running one of the most meaningful organizations there within the party, which is the Black Caucus, the Alabama Democratic Conference. And I think that as long as they continue to have that stronghold, they realize that they're going to hold a lot of power within the party, and that tends to rile up a lot of those folks in the Alabama Democratic Conference, because those folks tend to be older folks who have gone through these battles over a lot of which were over race. And so they're very sensitive to that. And I get that, and I understand it. I do. I understand their fight. I understand their fight to hold on to the power, and I understand why they're so resistant to some of the folks and why they suspect. I think in a lot of their cases, they absolutely mean and believe what they say, and they're not just doing it because it's an easy thing to put on somebody. But in a lot of ways, I think it is. I mean, in a lot of cases that they've done, especially lately, I think it is. And I think some of the things that they have done in terms of getting rid of the caucuses, I think a lot of that stuff has been mean-spirited. I think it has been for personal power, and I think it has caused fights and infighting between them and other people within the Alabama Democratic Party and within the National Party that has been wholly unhelpful and has distracted towards any sort of thing to move the party forward whatsoever. And so I think that's the reason why you've got groups out here now who are doing things on their own. And I think that is where I have a problem with them. It doesn't have, anything at all to do with race. And I mean, in terms of, whether or not a black candidate could win in the state, I don't know. I think I would have to see the candidate, and to see where things move from there. I don't necessarily think skin color is an ultimate detriment to a candidacy, but I think it does present a hurdle in this state right now, especially with the tone and tenor of things. Now that may change, and I think it was when some people said back when Doug Jones was running that at that particular time they felt like only a white male candidate was going to win that seat. I think it would have been hard, given the numbers, given what was going on for a woman or for a black candidate or for a Hispanic candidate or somebody else to have won that seat that Doug won at that time.
Well,
even given the problems with Roy Moore, I think it would have been very, very hard.
Well, I would say the only reason Doug won that seat was because Roy Moore was the candidate, and Roy Moore was so polarizing
Yes.
that not only did he I think galvanize a lot more support for Doug than a Democratic candidate normally would have had, but he also was but Moore was also so polarizing that even Richard Shelby said, "I'm not voting for that guy, and y'all don't have to vote for him either." And so that was just, a confluence of the right things, despite the weakness of the party and any shortcomings that any candidate would
And he still
have had.
almost won. Roy Moore still almost won.
Yeah. So that to me was sort of an unusual situation. But I think given the right, and again, I don't disagree that race, because of the fact that white supremacy has left such an imprint on this state, and because racism has left such an imprint on this state, meaning that there are a lot of racists in this state who are not going to vote for a black person. There are a lot of sexists in this state who are not going to vote for a woman. And there are a lot of people who may not be racist, but certainly still subscribe to white supremacy, who are voters in this state. I think you're right. Race is a hurdle. Gender is a hurdle. But I don't think we can afford to acquiesce and say it's impossible, because if we continue to say it's impossible, then it will be impossible. I think we have to be of the mindset that it is possible given the right set of circumstances. And granted, it all would have to come together just right. It would have to be the right candidate. It would have to be the right strategy in terms of messaging, and there'd have to be the right infrastructure in place. There'd have to be the right ground game in place. The fundraising would have to reach a certain level. I mean, there are a lot of things that would have to happen in order to make it possible. But I continue to believe that all of those things considered, it is possible.
No, I mean, I don't think that it's impossible, sometime in the future. I just think that it's going to be a build, and you've got to put in the work, you've got to put in the effort, you've got to find the candidate, you've got to build that candidate over a number of years, in a number of different offices, make them a well-known figure. I would say, let me ask you this.
Okay.
Do you think Charles Barkley could be elected governor of this state?
I do.
right now today, running as a Democrat?
Given some of the things that I already talked about, I actually think he could be elected today, given some of the things I talked about. But the things that I talked about would have to be in place, meaning, the messaging would have to be right. The infrastructure, even with Charles Barkley being the name that he is and having the personality and the fame that he does, the infrastructure would have to be right. So I think of any potential black candidate we can name out there, of people that either currently hold office or who run for office, or maybe who haven't run for office, like Barkley. He would probably have an easier chance than just about anybody else because he's so closely tied to Alabama and has so embraced Alabama and is so famous. So he would have an advantage that most other candidates would not have. But he'd still have to have some of those other things in place. But yeah, I think it's possible.
Man, I don't know. I still don't. I mean, even given all that, I still don't know. I just think that, there would be a lot of attacks on him. There would be a lot of attacks on things that he said and done. And, and a lot of it would have been, race based. I think that's, I just think that's the reality that where we currently sit. And I think we just have to build from that. So, all right, right-wing nut, and then we'll get out of here. Our right-wing nut is Robert Adderholt. If you've forgotten him, it's easy to do. He doesn't live here. So, I mean, and you never hear from him. So, yeah, it would be easy to forget that Robert Adderholt actually exists in this state, except he wants to make sure that that, like himself and his citizenship in Alabama, that other people's citizenship ends in unspectacularly, and that is through the end of birthright citizenship. And he proud of this, co-sponsoring of a bill to end birthright citizenship. Has it on his website, talking about restoring it to what was the original intent of the law. The original intent of the law was to provide birthright citizenship to anyone born in the United States. That was the original intent of the law. We've had a Supreme Court decision that determined this way back in 1898. The vote at the time was 6-2. And it was, at that point, a case involving Asian Americans, an Asian American who was born to immigrants who were not citizens. But was determined to be a citizen, and that has held precedent ever since, and it should hold precedent forever. And the fact that you're whining and moaning and bitching about it only proves that you're a racist and an asshole. Honestly, it really does. And I'm so sick of people justifying people being assholes and racists. It really is embarrassing to have somebody sponsor this from this state, to have somebody who so cavalierly believes this absolute BS. It's you're not a right-wing, you're just a right-wing moron, honestly. It just is so offensive to me to hear people talk about this seriously, as though it's a serious thing and though you're doing something to protect the country. Off.
It's enormously short-sighted, Josh. For one thing, it creates, I think, bad PR in that it, as you're suggesting, it just continues to reinforce the idea that the United States of America is an isolationist, white supremacist nation. That's point number one. Point number two is it's a really short-sighted approach to tapping into the potential of America. So you're now forfeiting the opportunity to tap into people who have the potential to add value to the society, as many immigrants have, many immigrant children have growing up in this nation. The children of undocumented people, or the children of people who have green cards or whatever, who were born in this nation and who grow up and become wonderful, contributors to American society. very short-sighted in terms of human resources. And then finally, I think, as you're suggesting, this is really being done just to facilitate a cruel intent. And in this case, I think it's a way to assuage the people that are torn over deporting, separating families, nuclear families. So now they can say, well, okay, if these children aren't automatically citizens, then when we deport their parents, we can deport them too. And this is an easier way to do that, a less controversial way to do that. And I think you're still going to end up splitting up families. I think that's going to be unavoidable because generally you're not just talking about the nuclear family, but, the extended family is going to be affected. But even so, I think you've got, in addition to that, I think you've got those other issues I mentioned. I just think it's really, again, as you're suggesting, it's just fundamentally about a cruel kind of white supremacist or racist kind of mindset. That's really what this is feeding.
Last I checked, Adderholt, not exactly a Native American name,
Right.
and
Right.
nor are the names of any of the other people who sponsored this piece of nonsense.
Yeah.
Bill,
Well, now, do you think he's just pandering? Is this something you think he's really personally enthusiastic about, or is he just
I
pandering?
mean, he seemed to be enthusiastic about it. He wrote about it and put it on his website, said he was
Okay.
proud of it. So,
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. But I do know that it's, it is personally offensive to me that we have somebody and we have other people who are so ignorant of their own history, of their families coming here and going through the exact same process as most of these other folks are trying to do today. Okay, most of these people, just because it's an overwhelming of the system, doesn't mean that they're not going through the system and working it properly. Okay, just because they have come through the asylum seeking system to this country. And the system has been so overwhelmed that a lot of these people are staying here and remaining in the country for months or years as they go through the asylum process, and in the meantime are having children. That's the same way you got here, asshole. I mean, really, it's the same way you got here. It's the same way all of you got here. All right, unless you're Native American, unless you're a member of a tribe somewhere or a descendant of a tribe, that's how you wound up on these shores. You came here because your family wanted opportunity. They wanted to have a better life for them and future generations. They came through whatever means they came through. A lot of them came here illegally. I know they don't tell you that, but that's exactly how they did. They showed up and overwhelmed the system at Ellis Island, and they just walked on in, and they established themselves then in the time pre-computers as citizens,
Yeah.
and this it
So-
just amazes me to watch people
Yeah.
talk about this and to whine and moan about the lack of assimilation
Yeah.
as we go and enjoy Little Italy and Chinatown and all these other major parts of places, and they talk about their Irish ancestry and
Yeah.
with such pride and joy. And I
Yeah.
mean, shut up.
So we just one point of just one additional point here. The indigenous people, unless you're an indigenous person, or unless you are a descendant of an African who was forced to come here.
That's right.
So there's that. But the reality is, again, as I think you're suggesting, a lot of these folks that are so quick to disqualify this current generation of immigrants have forgotten their own family history.
That's right.
Yeah.
It is 100% right. And listen, I don't. I'm going to say something else. I don't care about the border. All right, I don't care about it. It's never bothered me at all the way those folks have come here, because almost every single one of them out there that have come over here. I know that there have been some folks that have gotten into trouble, just like there's some Americans who get into trouble and all that. But almost all of them have come here trying to seek a better life for themselves and their families. I don't care if they send their money back home. I don't care at all. I do not care. They come here to do jobs that people want to give them. okay? And if they stopped giving those folks jobs, they wouldn't come here and seek a better life. But they come here, they work their asses off, they live in squalor for years in most cases before they finally make it up and make it out and try to make something better of themselves. We've enjoyed their labor, we've enjoyed their food, we've enjoyed their culture, we've enjoyed them to a large
Taxing
degree.
them.
And to listen to you people bitch and moan and whine about it as though you're somehow got ownership of this place off. I am
Yeah,
so
and-
tired of it.
And we've
God.
enjoyed the benefits of taxing them too.
Exactly. It's the only reason some of you are getting Social Security today. Well, of course, the other immigrant that we put in charge of dismantling the government
Exactly.
is going to make sure that you maybe don't. So enjoy that. All right. I've ranted enough. Let's get out of here. Till next week, y'all be safe out there.
Peace.